what happened in The Force Awakens, because this obviously provides opportunity for a sub-stratosphere battle, maybe, in space coming down onto the Scarif planet. But we did see something similar to that and somewhat similar terrain on Takodana when the First Order arrives at Maz Kanata's castle, and then the Resistance shows up, and there's the battle over the water there. So it wouldn't be anything too new to see that. I kind of hope it's a substratosphere battle along with whatever the rebels are doing on the ground. We do know that there's going to be some air speeders, what we would commonly refer to as snow speeders, but they were simply called snow because they were in the snow. Remember, they were adapted for the snow. They were having trouble adapting them to the cold. We are going to see some speeders in the film. That's been talked about quite often. So we do know we'll get something akin to a ground battle. And that's exciting too, because if we can get another sort of changed up version of what we got in The Empire Strikes Back, I think that lends itself to this line of thinking that I've gone over in previous podcasts of this movie changing the way that we view the original trilogy when we go back and watch it, and adding to it and elevating it. So that if we have some kind of ground battle with speeders and ACTs, as they're called in Rogue One, on different terrain over this more of this jungle-type planet, tropical paradise, and then you end up getting something again in The Empire Strikes Back, and to a certain extent, the rebels kind of have an awareness of how to go and deal with these. Again, just providing some fantastic opportunities. Now, speaking of opportunities, potential, what are we going to see next week? It is now common knowledge that at Star Wars Celebration, taking place in London next week, that they will be showing a 3-minute trailer. Now, how do we know this? Well, okay, they haven't announced we're going to get a trailer at Celebration. What they have announced and what we have found out is that ABC is airing Secrets of the Force Awakens or Secrets to the Journey to the Force Awakens or something like that. I don't think it's anything that we haven't seen before, but that's going to air on Friday night. And in the promo material for the show that's airing Friday night, it also says 3-minute Rogue One trailer. Now, it was a given that at Celebration we were probably going to get a full trailer, much in the same way we did with The Force Awakens. It's happening later in the year. Last year it happened in April. This year it's happening in July. So, again, it was pretty much a given that we were going to end up getting a full trailer at Celebration. Well, now we've got confirmation of that. And 3 minutes is a big chunk of time. Now, for those that don't want to wait for the trailer to come out that night on ABC, they are going to be live streaming all of Star Wars Celebration in Europe next week. And so if you go on YouTube at any point, just like they did with Celebration last year, you'll be able to click on the live stream and watch the goings-on. And usually they repeat a lot of the different panels that take place. The major one with Gareth Edwards, the director of Rogue One, and Kathleen Kennedy, is taking place early on Friday morning. So I think it's like 8 o'clock Pacific, 11 Eastern, which bums me out a little bit because I'll be in the middle of my show, so I'll end up having to watch the trailer at some point during a commercial break. And I'm sure that they'll go and upload the entire panel after it's done airing. So just get yourself ready for a full trailer next week. As far as what to expect, I think we're going to get an amazing trailer. And I say that because I do believe that Disney feels like they're doing some damage control with all of the rumors and the negativity surrounding the film as it related to all the reshoots that take place. And they really need to bring it with this trailer and raise the hype level. It is nowhere near what it was for The Force Awakens, and understandably so. This is something brand new for the Star Wars universe. A spin-off film is something that we've never gotten before. You know, apart from like the Clone Wars cartoon, but that doesn't really count. I mean, this is an official, real movie. Essentially, it's a brand new prequel, if you will, but it doesn't have the saga characters in it, so they're calling it a spin-off film. And while there's a lot of hype around it, there's also a lot of confusion So they're really going to need to pack this 3-minute trailer with as much as they can to make sure that people understand where it takes place in the time period, what kind of movie it's going to be. And I fully expect that they're going to end up showing Darth Vader in some form during this trailer. It would be a massive mistake to not do that. He is going to end up being a huge selling point to this film, and also he'll be going a long way to establish where it does take place in the timeline. I would not be surprised to see that the trailer starts off with a bit of perhaps footage from A New Hope, of the original trilogy, maybe even the prequel trilogy, to kind of set the stage. You know, after Revenge of the Sith, the Empire has now, grown some 30-odd years later, before the events of Star Wars, showing clips of the Death Star, what happened, this kind of thing. So I would imagine that 3 minutes worth of trailer may not be all footage from Rogue One, and there might be a bit of establishment taking place and using the other movies as a means to go and do that. I don't know about you, man, but I'm excited. I can't wait. I really can't wait to see what they're going to show us. I really loved the teaser trailer, even though there was very little in it. It was, it had some dialogue, which was nice. It had some, a little bit of establishing of what's going on, as you heard in the intro of this podcast, but it didn't give us, in my view, it didn't carry the weight as the Force Awakens trailers did, because there was so much more writing on that. We wanted to know the mythology of what was going on. Where are we headed with the Force? What is Darth Vader now? How does Luke play into it and all that? I mean, those are things that immediately just make the saga films so appealing because of that mythology. With a movie like this, you got a brand new cast of characters. You don't really have a Force-driven mythology running behind it. That's why Darth Vader is going to be so important. We hear that Tarkin may be in this movie using the same type of technology they used to de-age most recently Robert Downey Jr. in Captain America Civil War. Perhaps we get a glimpse of him. We're also hearing rumors that Princess Leia might be in it. And maybe they did a de-aging process on her as well. As we've mentioned in the most recent podcast, this movie is supposed to take place 10 minutes before A New Hope starts. And so, and again, 10 minutes is pretty specific. I think this movie takes place right before A New Hope. I think the movie is going to end somewhere on the Star Destroyer leaving to go after the Tantive 4 after the plans have been beamed to the ship by rebel spies, as I quote A New Hope again. So set your DVRs for Friday night. Pay attention to YouTube, and just, it'll be all over the internet, and it'll be trending number 1 on Facebook probably by 8:15 on Friday once that trailer gets released. Now, there's also been some talk about what, if anything, will we get from Episode 8. Rian Johnson is doing a panel. I personally think it's a little early for any type of teaser, but they have wrapped filming, for the most part, of Episode 8. Despite what will more than likely end up being reshoots, just like they've done with all the other movies, and just like they did with Rogue One. I'm sure there will be reshoots. But the one thing that people keep hearkening back to is that during Comic-Con a couple of years ago, they ended up releasing a teaser trailer for Guardians of the Galaxy, and it had only been shooting for 2 weeks. So with the principal photography wrapped up on Episode 8, they could easily put something out very similar to what we got in the first teaser trailer in November of the year before, 2015, before The Force Awakens came out. That really quick 88-second one. I'm skeptical, just because I think all their focus is going to end up being on Rogue One. Maybe they release something for just the Celebration audience, much in the same way there was a teaser that was constructed specifically for Rogue One that didn't contain any movie footage. It was basically just a shot created of a camera pan through a valley on a jungle planet with a TIE fighter going by, and then it panned up to see the Death Star on the horizon, which again goes back to what we've talked about. That was obviously the planet Scarif, and that was obviously the Death Star in orbit above it, which was represented in that teaser trailer. But that was never released officially online for anybody. There were some bootlegs of it that got released, but they were all really poor quality. Disney and Lucasfilm never put that out for mass consumption. So perhaps they do something like that for Episode 8. I still think it's really early on. I'm going to throw this out here, however, really quick. And I know this is a bit of a stretch, but I'm going to throw it out there anyways. The movie is still going off the timeline. Episode 8 is still going off the timeline of when it was originally supposed to be released in May next year. The Star Wars movies were supposed to come out in May. The Force Awakens was supposed to come out in May of 2015. And they ended up pushing it to give themselves more time. And when they did that, they kind of pushed everything. And it was originally planned that the Star Wars movies would be a May event. I can't help but wonder if, potentially, and I think there's probably a 2% chance this happens, but just for the sake of saying it, I wonder if they don't move up the date of Episode 8. If they've got filming completed, still plenty of time for post-production, provided they don't need to do any reshoots. I just wonder, because we have heard that those that have read, one of the conceptual artists for Lucasfilm, Ian McCaig, love his work, by the way. If you get into the art books for the prequels or for The Force Awakens, you can see a ton of it in there. He's one of my favorite conceptual artists for all of Star Wars. But he came out and made a comment that he's read the script for the Han Solo spinoff movie, and then it was one of the best scripts he'd ever read. So what I'm suggesting is a moving up of all these films. There's a lot of talk that eventually Disney and Lucasfilm will end up having 2 Star Wars films a year, much in the same way we get 2 Marvel movies a year. The fact that they're already done wrapping up, it's only July, and we still have essentially a year and a half before this movie gets released. I just wonder if they keep that December date. I'm sure they do. I'm sure it's just the fanboy in me wanting them to move up the movie so that I can see it in the theater sooner. But I don't know. That was their original plan. And I think one of the only reasons why they ended up pushing things was not only to give Rian Johnson more time, but also because The Force Awakens ended up doing so well in that December release date. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Just in the off, galaxy far, far away, off chance that they do end up saying we've moved up the release date of Episode 8, and it's going to come out in May of next year, and then perhaps they even move up the release date of the Han Solo spinoff movie. Although I don't think they started filming on that, in which case that probably would be way too difficult. I know Lord and Miller, the guys who are directing it, are supposed to be at Celebration, so we'll certainly find out more then. How about this thought? There is a rough version of Episode 8 sitting on somebody's computer. How crazy is that? I can't imagine what it must be like to work for the films, to work for the movie studios, and to have access to all that stuff. I mean, you've got to be a fan, right? I mean, how can you... I work in entertainment doing that thing with my fingers. And, sometimes we do things behind the scenes that I guess other people would think were really cool before we release it to the public. But I just can't imagine working for, being as big of if there are fans as big as you are and as I am who work for Disney that are able to see this stuff. Like Pablo Hidalgo is probably the best person the best example of that person. Is what is it like for Pablo to be able to see portions of Episode 8 already? I mean, how cool must that be? Or I wonder if some of the fun's gone by doing that. No. I know when I've created something, maybe a piece of audio, if I put together a piece of production, even when it's done and I've finished with it, and I've done music mixes and stuff like that, I still think it's awesome. So I would imagine it's just on a much, much different level for those that are involved than it is for you and me in terms of anticipation. All right, let's get to, speaking of Episode 8, let me get to the topic of this podcast before we wrap things
There
up.
has been an awakening. Have you felt it?
Daisy Ridley. Oh, Daisy Ridley. Daisy. Daisy Ridley has put out some videos of her. She puts out several videos of her